From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos post-game reaction podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. Ben Grant joined as always by JB, and we are going to wrap up what was a heartbreaking loss for the Toronto Argonauts. A team that was decimated with injuries coming in, had some fight, but just made so many mistakes throughout the course of the evening. And ultimately, one last mistake at the end was one too many, and they fell to the Saskatchewan Roughriders 39-32. Before we get into that, I want to tell you about Something in the Water Brewing. They do such a fantastic job, not only in their primary job, which was making great beer. They do that better than anybody. They do a great job of hosting you before Argos games. Right here in Liberty Village, just steps from where I am right now at BMO Field, you can go enjoy a wonderful award-winning beer at Something in the Water Brewing, hang out on the patio, and then walk to either Argos practice or the Argos game playing here at BMO Field. You've got to check it out. If you haven't been there yet, you've got to go. And if you've been, you know what I'm talking about, and you're already there. Make sure you check out Something in the Water Brewing in the heart of Liberty Village. JB, before we get into our analysis, let's hear some of Mike Hogan's calls from our radio broadcast on TSN 1050. Here's what the game sounded like as we go to Sounds of the Game.
Caught the ball, throws an interception at the 15-yard line. Argos get a rare turnover this year, and it is Blackburn. Tyshawn gets the pick, his second of his career in his second year, and a very late flag comes out. Coxie and Brissett to the near side, 3 receivers to the right. Arbuckle barking things out. He's just called an audible. Pressure from the Riders, quick hitter, touchdown! Dejan Brissett with a touchdown, which makes Ben Grant a happy man on his podcast. And the Argos draw first blood here. It's 6-0 on the opening drive of this game. From the 1-yard line, and Jarrett Dagey takes the snap, and he falls forward, and I think he's in. The Argos say he's in. He's in. Touchdown Argos. They cut the lead to 24-19 with the extra point to come. Hyrolahu's kick is long, and it is good! Liram Hyrolahu ties his career long, and the Argos put up 3 on the final play of the half. It's 17-10 for the Riders over the Argos as we go to the break. First 2 to the right, back to pass Arbuckle. 4-man rush, goes over the middle, has a man inside the 5, inside the 1, diving forward and getting the touchdown! Back to pass, Arbuckle floats it into the end zone, and it is caught! Dejan Brissett pulls one down, and we are tied!
So how you doing, JB? What's your anxiety level like right now? Your rage meter? Where are we hovering at?
Well, look, I'm taking the long view. I thought it was a much improved game from last week. I thought that there was a lot of stuff that the team did well. I thought, much as I picked them, I thought they absolutely showed the fortitude that we've come to expect. I thought that there was a lot of really good things that the team did. And there were a lot of really terrible errors, some of which are on the coaches, some of which are on, backups who are playing starting roles. I thought it was disappointing that it ended on that play. But on the whole, I was pretty happy with the game. I mean, Saskatchewan is one of the better teams in the league, and Toronto went punch for punch with them, with, essentially their B team. So I take a lot of positives from this. This wasn't a playoff game. This wasn't, I'm not as emotionally distraught as maybe others are. I thought it was, I don't know. I don't want to sound too positive, I guess, but honestly, I took a lot of good stuff. I thought there was a lot of really good signs from the players on the team.
The reason I'm maybe a little less positive because I agree with you and what you're saying, and I did sort of feel like that, but I felt more like that. Maybe I'd feel more like that if this were a bigger loss. The fact that they had an opportunity to win and yet just made so many mistakes to me negates a lot of those things. And it doesn't mean they don't exist. Those positives are still there. Nick Arbuckle, by far his best game of the three. There's no question. I think we got some decent offensive line play from places we weren't expecting. I thought the run blocking from the offensive line on the left side was fantastic. I thought Urgel against a really tough test, handled himself well with the exception of the inside spin move, which Carney seemed to be able to beat him with. But and some players stepping up in the absence of like Wyndham McManus, Dark Angelo playing with everything he's got, Cam Judge all over the field, and yet there were just so many mistakes, and I want to go through them. Just we'll start with the mistakes, and maybe we'll get to some of the positives too. But what's so upsetting in a game like this where it came down to the last seconds. And so, if you didn't see the game, you're listening to this podcast, the Argos tied it up with 23 seconds to go. They got a touchdown to Kevin Mittal. They got the 2-point conversion, as you heard, to Dejan Brissett. They tie it up. They kick it deep, which I defend, I think is the right thing to do with 23 seconds. It's not like there's 8 seconds left. With 23, if you kick it short, they've got like 3 or 4 plays to get in field goal range. And we've seen so many times where that happens again and again and again. Ottawa got blasted for kicking it short just last year and having that exact same scenario happen to them. So I don't mind kicking it deep, but there were mistakes made on that play. And we'll talk about those as we start to run through chronologically the mistakes we saw. So I think the mistakes to me began with the first one we saw was a rare DeMonte Coxie drop. We just don't see him drop footballs. And this is a play that I think would have, if not gone for a touchdown, would have been a huge play to bring them within certainly field goal range and maybe the opportunity to get a touchdown. Arbuckle dropped back. He had Coxie out to his right, launched it deep down the sideline. It wasn't a good throw. It was inside, and Coxie had to adjust to it, but he did. He adjusted to it. His defender fell down, and then it hit Coxie in the chest, and he dropped the football. Do you see it any differently, JB? Is that all on Coxie? Do you put that a little bit on Arbuckle? Was it a tougher play than I saw from my position in the booth? How did you see it?
Yeah, I mean it was not a perfectly thrown ball, and it was tricky because you had a defender like essentially like rolling at his knees as he was trying to catch the ball. So you can certainly see why he was a little bit distracted. Like it, it was not pass interference, or at least I don't think it would have been called that if challenged, but it certainly was legal pass interference because you have this guy rolling around at your knees as you're trying to catch a ball. However, you got to catch that ball. The ball hits your hands and you're a professional wide receiver. You have to catch that ball. So yeah, like you got to catch, now look, he made a brilliant catch in the fourth quarter, but that was frustrating.
And on a day when you're missing so many guys, you need the guys that you aren't missing to step up. And so you're without Tavares Daniels, you're without Wyndham McManus, we know we've already been without Chad Kelly for a while, but they're without so many different starters. The regular starters that were playing today, those were the guys that needed to have huge games. And Coxie's the guy that I look to with only 3 catches on 7 targets for 51 yards. Again, made a great catch near the end. He had some wonderful plays. I can't believe he caught that ball near the end that was almost a touchdown in tight coverage. But yeah, that was one I know he would love to have back. We saw Tavares Daniels do the same thing in week 1. You just got to find a way to make that play. Then the next big mistake was 2nd and goal from the 1. They go quarterback sneak and fail. And then they ran a running play with Kevin Brown out of pistol, and that was stopped short of the goal line. That to me was also a huge fail I blame execution just as much. I don't like the play call on 3rd down. I don't like going out of shotgun or pistol on 3rd and goal from the 1. I think I would have tried to sneak it again, honestly, but you also have to blame the execution. You have to convert that. You have to get 1 yard. When you have a quarterback sneak from the 1 yard line, you have to convert it. I don't know why Jared Dagey wasn't in for that one, why they left Arbuckle out on the field there. Dagey went in later for a sneak. How did you see that one?
Yeah, I mean, Dagey obviously should be in there. Also, like, if you're going to run the ball, then why let Saskatchewan substitute. Like, if you're going to run the ball, then rush up and run the ball. Like, I just didn't agree with letting the substitution, letting them bring in their heavy package, and now you're running against their heavy package. Like, I just assumed it was going to be a passing play, because why would you not take the snap from under center, and why would you allow for a substitution? If you want to smash the ball in, that should be a hurry up, in my opinion. Yeah, I did not love that play call. That was huge. I mean, that should have been a touchdown. It was a terrific drive. They drove the whole damn field. I just did not like the play calls in the red zone. I would have liked to have seen Arbuckle get in on that kind of running play. I don't love Kevin Brown as the hammer. Yeah, I didn't like the play call. I didn't like the personnel. I thought that was a definite missed opportunity. I didn't think the coaching staff really nailed that one.
And then the next mistake that I'll call a mistake was actually a combination of 18 mistakes. When you are outmanned, as the Argos were today, in terms of the guys they had on the injured list, the guys who couldn't play today, and they lose two other defensive starters, and we'll talk about that maybe in a little bit too. They're so short, you can't make mistakes. You just can't shoot yourself in the foot. The Argos today, 18 penalties for 178 yards. I know Saskatchewan had a lot of offsetting penalties. They had 11 for 129, but you cannot, when you are shorthanded, you can't commit that many penalties. You can never have 18 penalties, and you can never have 178 yards in penalties, even when you're fully healthy, even when you've got everybody. You can't be that undisciplined. And so that was infuriating today.
Yeah, I mean, if there were one thing that I was really, well, there were like a couple things that I was really kind of frustrated and angry with during the game, even though I sound quite calm now. For sure, the penalties. I mean, just killer. Now, look, it was an incredibly chippy game.
Very.
There was a dirty play that cost a player his season. It was a tough game. So I know that the penalties are going to be inflated, because that's what happens when a game kind of teeters. Like, I was really surprised they didn't throw somebody out. I mean, it teetered on kind of chaos quite a bit. However, there were some really stupid penalties, just killer penalties on kickoff. Just adding 15 yards when you need to get a stop. I mean, absolutely, the margin for victory is so small with the current squad missing 6, 7, 8 starters. You just have to have the discipline to not take those penalties, to not let the game get too big for you or too emotional, because you don't have the talent to overcome that. You don't have the personnel on the field that can kind of clear up or clean up a bad penalty. So yeah, the penalties, absolutely. I'm sure coach will lose their mind over that. They were really bad. I mean, they're good and bad penalties, and almost all of them were bad penalties.
And then the next mistakes were Cameron Judge dropping 2 interceptions, and you just don't. He's such a professional football player that you see him making one mistake. Everyone makes one mistake. It's just so uncharacteristic for him to drop 2 balls like that, one of which I think was gone. I think that second one, the first one was off a tip ball. Those are tough. They're really tough. Like, tip ball right in front of you, it's hard. Like, even the receivers will drop that.
I'll give him the first. He has to have the second. And you can tell.
I know his expression said it all. But that one's gone. That's a touchdown. If he undercut a route perfectly, read the play. It was such a good defensive play, right? He's in coverage. He sees what's happening in front of him, undercuts the receiver, has his hands on it, and he would have been off to the races. And I can only think that that's what went through his brain right before the ball got there, and thought about the run after the catch instead of the catch. But that was a tough one, because that any of these things we're talking about, any of these mistakes, any single one of them probably result in an Argos win tonight instead of an Argos loss. And we get to the final mistake on the second last play of the game. The Argos have just tied it up. They kick off deep. to Mary Alford, and they have 11 guys on the coverage team, and it gets returned for a Saskatchewan game-winning touchdown. Take us through that kickoff return touchdown, because there was a lot of stuff that happened on the play. It wasn't just being a man short. There was a few things there.
It was a good kickoff. I mean, they had them in the corner. I mean, honestly, from a special teams perspective, I think you're really happy with the angle. Like, now you have them in this corner. All you have to defend is the sideline. And obviously being a man short hurts. And look, from me watching the replay, I haven't had time to study the film, but like watching the replay, there's clearly a block in the back at the point where the return went from a return to a touchdown. The tackler is clearly being snowplowed in the opposite direction of the runner as the runner passes them. And so that's, unfortunate that it's not challengeable, which it should be. I don't know why it's not. And, that's tough. It's tough to take. Obviously, having 11 men is brutal. But, that's a tough no call to get there. At that point where like you fought back so hard, and really largely the special teams was pretty good. I thought the kick coverage was, the punt return coverage was really good. I thought they did a good job all game. There was no reason to believe that they were not going to cover that, but that's a place where you miss Jack Cassar.
Brian Harolamano, for that matter. Both of the two best tacklers on special teams, or at least disciplined players on special teams.
Yeah, you don't want to just constantly be making excuses, but it is what it is. When you are down those guys, the guys who are in there are not as good, and that'll be painful. I think the takeaway for me is the comeback was fantastic. To fight, to get those, and really like to come back with long drives. It wasn't like a guy breaks a touchdown and runs for 80 yards. You know what I mean? It was a legitimate fight comeback where they were able to string together drives. And that was really encouraging despite making some mistakes. But if I were going to, I guess, highlight a couple of things that I thought really were a problem. Defensive back play. Those touchdowns were you just can't have guys catching slants and running for 80 yards for a touchdown. You can't have it. You can't. The defense played largely really well. I thought the defensive line did the best that they could. Linebacker wise, obviously, AJ Ouellette was a handful today, and full credit to him. Look, he looks light and fast, and he looked dangerous every time he touched the ball. I'm really thankful they didn't give him the ball more. But that defensive back play on those touchdowns, the sluggo and then the slant, you just can't have guys falling down, and that was really frustrating. If I were to highlight an area, that was not good defensive back play tonight.
Yeah, I thought it was a tough game for Benji Franklin in a lot of ways. He was the one that you referred to on that slant play that went the distance. He was in man coverage and fell down as the receiver caught the football. And yeah, when you're in man coverage like that, especially when you're playing aggressively, that's going to be the result. And I thought I don't know if they had to play as aggressively as they did, but they certainly pressed. Like, they were sending heat. They were playing a lot of man coverage. They were blitzing the safety, Derek Sluka. He came up a few times. We haven't really seen that yet this season. And I thought Trevor Harris did a good job taking advantage of that on a few occasions. Franklin had another one down the sideline where I thought he was in good coverage, jumped fully extended, and I misjudged it maybe by an inch. And Pickton came away with the catch, just got 2 inches of height on him. It was a tougher go. I don't think a terrible game by Franklin, but he's played better, and they needed everyone to step up today, and he's another guy that I think will probably be disappointed.
Where you really miss your stars, like where you really miss McManus, is when you have to have that stop, when you've got to get a stop to get off the field to give you a chance to win. That's where stars make the difference. That's why, MVPs of the league often win championships, because they make the play that you need. And, there were a couple of times tonight where they did really well and they got the, second and long, and they just couldn't get off the field. So it was frustrating, but not, but positive. I thought I thought there were a lot of positives to take away after you clean up some of the mistakes.
Before we get too positive, JB, let's just talk about those two injuries because we haven't addressed those really other than just mentioning them in passing. So the first injury, Kenneth George Jr., the Sam linebacker, already filling in for Donald Rutledge, who's coming back from injury himself. I think he's looked very good in that Sam position. He's such a valuable player to have out there too because he can play every spot. He's played corner, he's played halfback. He's a great Sam linebacker. He got hit in what looked like a gruesome injury on a. It looked like
Well,
a
it was
dirty
a dirty
play.
block. It was penalized.
It was. Yeah, he was penalized for it.
Yeah,
Essentially, what happened? The
no two ways
receiver.
about it.
The receiver
It was a
came
dirty
across
play.
the formation, dove at his knees, and his cleat stuck in the ground. His knee bent the wrong way, and yeah, he was in a significant amount of pain. It was carted off the field. We haven't received any word on that other than we were told he obviously wasn't coming back in the game, but we'll have to wait and see. It just did not look good as the loudest leaf blower in the world just is fired up behind me. Apologies for what it must sound like on the podcast, but yeah, that was tough to see. And everyone from both teams immediately took a knee. They understood the magnitude of this injury.
It's terrible to see. Like, he's played really well, and obviously it's incredibly frustrating because on the field there has to be, a brotherhood. There has to be a trust that you can play tough and physical football, but nobody is going to try and hurt you. And, did he want to hurt him? No. Did he break the rules and hurt him badly? Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty disgusting from where I sit.
I feel like I'm like on the flight deck of a aircraft carrier right now with the noise. This is the loudest leaf blower in the world that is clearing off the Toronto Argonauts bench tarp behind me. I'll try and power through. The second injury, Derek Parrish, who I didn't see what happened. Maybe you got a chance to see that replay. It looked like an ankle, and he was down for a lot of time, seemed to be in considerable pain. But the good news is, while he was almost immediately ruled out for the rest of the game, he was able to walk off under his own steam without assistance, very gingerly, mind you. But I thought that was a good sign. Did you see a replay of that injury?
No, I didn't. But I agree. Like the ankle, and obviously ankle is better than knee. Yeah, but God knows we cannot afford to lose him.
So already down the starters they dropped two more, and that really forced them they tightened up the rotation. They had their whole defensive line played more snaps tonight than they have in any other game. You had like Johnson out there, for example, playing out of position. He was playing defensive end. They just didn't have other guys. And, he knows that position. He played it in college. That's not a problem, but that's not the point. Like, he wasn't expected to be an every down player tonight. And there he was early on being forced to be out there. He was playing. They had him sort of off the ball too a few times, almost like a linebacker. They did that with Chatfield as well, with like 3-man fronts just to get that extra body. Guys were having to do stuff that they just haven't been called upon to do, probably in practice much, but certainly in games. And that makes it really tough.
Yeah, and I feel for the team because obviously they're gutting it out, and you have people out there doing everything they can. People playing out of position, people playing, snaps, the number of snaps that they're not used to playing, to fight all the way back to get that amazing 2-point conversion. It's football. We've all been a part of heartbreaking, last second kick returns or interceptions. If this were their regular squad, I'd be really angry. I'd be really frustrated that a team threw away a win. But if you look at this team, the fact that they were able to go punch for punch with Saskatchewan is great to see. I thought Kevin Mattal looked fantastic tonight.
He looked really good. We'll go through some of the stats here, and we'll get to Kevin Matala too. Let's just start with Nick Arbuckle on the offensive side of the ball. His best game by far, 26 of 33, 259, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The interception I didn't mind. It's just he didn't have the arm strength to make that throw. He saw
No,
Unger streaking down the sideline on a go route. Chad Kelly makes that, but it's a tough. That's
and he
a
should
tough
have
ball.
ran.
I know.
He could have run for 20 yards.
I know there's so much space in front of him, but
I mean,
Unger
that's what
was
really
wide
frustrated
open.
me there is, because I've been on I mean, he wasn't able to get that touchdown earlier on the run. I know he's not very fast, but and I would have loved to have seen him run there instead of trying his arm because, I think you have to know that your arm is not strong enough to do what he tried to do. But he felt more in control tonight. And I thought the running game helped them a lot in that first half, that they were able to run successfully. That opened things up a little bit for him.
Yeah, that's something we talked a lot about on the broadcast too. It changes the game for you. Like you as a quarterback and as an offensive lineman, when you can run effectively, you saw it just flipped on Saskatchewan. They're like, okay, we got to respect this run. And then suddenly guys had a lot of space to run around in as receivers.
And look, and full credit, in the second, in that second half, the red zone calls were much better. The tying touchdown was a terrific play. The 2-point conversion was an amazing catch.
Yeah.
Full credit to them there. What did you think of them going for the field goal when it was 24-10?
I was fine with that. I questioned a few decisions on this night. That wasn't one I really questioned. I'll tell you what I did question though. I didn't like going for 2 when they did, even though they got it. I wouldn't have gone for 2 in that situation. And then the other one was twice Coach Dinwiddie accepted holding penalties to give Saskatchewan another crack at second down instead of it being third down and taking your chances with a punt or a field goal. Well, the first one worked out. They actually netted 2 yards in the transaction, but the second one didn't. The second one, they backed Saskatchewan up, and that ended up turning into they converted 2nd and 17, I believe, and that ended up turning into a Saskatchewan score. I think I would have forced what would have been a 52-yard field goal attempt instead. They came out on the wrong end of that. So those were the decisions I questioned.
The only thing for me was the field goal. It was still a 2-score game after the field goal. And so for me, I'm much more tempted to try and get a touchdown there.
I understand that, but it was pretty early still. Like it wasn't like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter or anything at that point.
No, but it was, I mean, you're mid-third.
Yeah.
I get the argument for getting, taking your points where you have them, but yeah, I mean, a touchdown really would have, I can see the argument, but I kind of lean towards trying to get a little closer there. I didn't love the pass interference that was called on Toronto replay. I thought that was a really tough one. And then, but then the replay people made it up in the fourth quarter.
I know. I couldn't believe they didn't. I thought for sure they were going to call that pass interference on Toronto. Either one of them
was PI, it was the second one.
Yeah, the second one was definitely pass interference, and they said it wasn't. The first one was
well, because I think they felt bad about the first one because
maybe
the first one made no sense. You're like, well, if that's PI, like if that's the bar for pass interference, 2 guys kind of running into each other, then why would you just challenge pass interference on every play? I mean, a receiver and a DB, kind of bumped each other as the receiver's trying to run like a whip route and he's trying to change direction on the DB. I mean, and the ball wasn't even catchable. I was shocked that they overturned it because it's such a dangerous precedent to allow kind of ticky-tacky pass interference to be called after the fact, especially when the ball is not thrown anywhere near the guy catching it.
Yeah, I get that. I thought they were both pass interference, truthfully, but I often do as an offensive guy, and you often don't as a defense guy. But
I didn't think either should have been called. I think both were great no calls, and they got one of them right. So that diffused my pass interference anger.
Continuing through the stats, Mayan Williams with another good day, only 7 carries, but he had 37 yards out of it, had a couple
Yeah,
nice
what happened there?
runs.
Did he get hurt?
Yeah, I feel like he must have been banged up. There wasn't any statement, and he was still on the sideline from what I could tell. But we didn't see him much after his 7th carry. There was a spell where he wasn't out there for a long time, and it was a lot of Kevin Brown, and I don't know what happened. So we'll have to get an update on that. And then receiving, Kevin Mittal, Dejan Brissett, both had huge days. You talked about
Yeah.
Mittal earlier.
My family is already thanking Mr. Mattal.
Yeah, well, as is mine for my plus 330 wager with my Golden Fleeces, which puts your plus 240 wager to shame. Both of our bets cashing in on touchdowns. But Kevin Mittal, 7 catches, 98 yards and a touchdown. Dejan Brissett, 6 catches, 53 yards and a touchdown. And he also had that 2-point conversion catch, which was a thing of beauty. Defensively, Isaac Darkangelo led the way with 6 tackles. I was surprised at how low Judge was. He was the leading tackler last week and all over the field. I still thought he had a good presence defensively today, but sometimes works out like that. Only 2 tackles on the day. Sluka with 5 tackles, and that's not usually a great sign when your safety is having to come up and is second on the team in tackles.
No, I mean, obviously, from a linebacker point of view, they were missing that that presence in the middle of the field. Where Olette was really able to be a problem. Most times they had to dedicate, quite a bit, to stop him. I didn't think Harris was particularly good. From a Saskatchewan point of view. He didn't scare me at all. I don't know, like, if you're a Saskatchewan fan, I don't love that arm, and I don't love the prospect of him after 14 more games.
Yeah, he didn't have as much juice on it as he did the last time we saw him in person. There's no question about that. But I thought he was really smart, except for that one inexplicable interception. I have no idea what he saw. Tyshawn Blackburn just standing there, and he threw it right to him. But every other play, I thought, like, every time Toronto blitzed, he found the soft spot.
Yeah,
he knew where to
really
go.
Smart. It's like Fajardo.
Yeah.
But I mean, we saw how Fajardo ended in Montreal.
So both of our one things connected this week. Much good may hit to us. My one thing was 2 catches of 25 plus air yards. They had it, and your thing was an interception. They had it, but
well, quite a high bar we set.
Yeah, well, either way,
I would like a field goal.
Yes, well, we're gonna have to bring it down, maybe a bit lower. I don't know what to do with that, but at the end of the day, it's you listening to this at home as an Argos fan listening to this. You're upset, you're angry, and I totally get that. I feel that with you, but I think you have to remember how amazing it was for this team to get into that position. It doesn't negate all the mistakes. It doesn't wash away everything else that went wrong today for the Toronto Argonauts. But this is a team that was absolutely gutted today for personnel, and they went toe to toe with one of the best teams in the West, who has had some injury problems, but not nearly to the extent that Toronto was dealing with today. And so I come away with this just knowing how good this team is going to look when these players start coming back. And not everybody is going to come back, but you are going to get back Wynton McManus and Chad Kelly and Deonta McMahon, and all of these defensive and offensive stars, Sage Dockstader, offensive linemen. Like we're looking all over the place at these holes and new players filling in. You had Urgel playing right tackle today, who was like in school, just a short time ago, playing for East Carolina. Like these are true rookies that were being counted on today. Guys that had just signed. You had Brandon Calvert caught a pooch kickoff after being signed yesterday. So guys that didn't even know they were going to be in the game making plays. So I think there are some positive takeaways there.
Yeah, and if we can get an Ottawa loss tomorrow night, they're very lucky to be in a division that is a tire fire.
Any last thoughts before we sign off here, JB?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to have such sort of low expectations, of the team, but I think it's realistic. I mean, the CFL has always been a league where it matters what you do in August and September. You just have to make sure that you're, I'm going to throw an analogy at you, not a one-wheel car analogy, but, it's like a 10,000-meter race at the Olympics. You just got to stay with the pack, and then when they ring the bell, you're ready to go for that final lap. And I think with Hamilton and Ottawa being as helpful as they are currently, as frustrating as starting 0-3 is, we are still running with the pack, which puts them in a very good position. I mean, honestly, it's not really any different than being, well, it's a little, but it's not that different than, say, being 2-1. If everybody else was 2-1, all that matters is like who you're staying with. Montreal's going to run away with the division. That's fine. We didn't win the division last year. All that matters is that the team is ready to play good football in September, and that is my, that's where my concern will start kicking in. Not now.
And as it stands right now, the Argos are tied for a home playoff spot.
See,
So
think the All Caps and the Tie Cats. What better friends could an Argo fan have?
the Argos next play Sunday, June 29th, next Sunday. They're in the nation's capital to take on the All Caps, as you say. That will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. The final score, again, from BMO Field, a very disappointed crowd makes their way home into the GO station. The Saskatchewan Roughriders 39, the Toronto Argonauts 32. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see you.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe.